sandbox and tried to check its internet with Google Public Data. So the quality's bad. It's untimely a lot of the time, believe it or not.
Well, this is one of the things that irritates me. And you know, the really hard thing when you're talking about this is there are people in threat intel who are doing, you know, absolutely amazing work. The problem is that it's just become such an outsized effort in the industry where you've just got so many threat intel companies pumping out so much stuff, and that you need like to put real effort into making use of it. If as a general sort of enterprise, right?
Yeah, people, and so that's actually something that, like, I guarantee you there were 100 companies who had something useful to say about Log4j or about the Confluence bug that happened recently or about a lot of these bugs. I guarantee you they have useful things to say about it. They just can't get it to their users or to their customers in a timely enough fashion that they're able to make decisions based off of it. And if you don't do that, what are you doing?
And quite often the customer is in the position of being the proverbial mule with the spinning wheel. Don knows how he got it, and Don knows how he's going to use it, you know?
Yeah, and so it's really it's sad to see when there's so much that again, there are so many people who are doing it, a lot of the organizations around. I don't want to sling too terribly much because I get that it is very difficult. It's hard to do, but I'm looking around and I'm like, how is that someone supposed to make decisions with this? Or how is someone supposed to like reliably get, you know, value out of this thing or prevent bad things from happening? How are they expected to do this? And so part of my frustration is that in order to even get value out of a lot of threat intelligence offerings, you need to buy like 9 more things. And like that is really frustrating, I think, for a lot of users and buyers. It's just there's a lot of red tape, a lot more stuff that you have to buy.
That's where threat intelligence should live. And yeah, I mean, if you've got a system where, you know, say Mandiant publishes all of its IOCs for the last quarter, and you've got a system you can cut and paste that into and get some meaning out of, like that is just incredibly powerful and incredibly cool. But that's not most organizations. Like the groundwork you have to do to make that a reality is substantial. And I guess, you know, that's why I said in the intro, like I can see the use case. If you're a bank and there's a threat intel company that mostly tracks fin crews, you know, you're definitely going to want to subscribe to that feed. But yeah, again, like it's just such an outsized like sector of the whole wider cybersecurity industry.
Yeah, I think that's right. So it's definitely, there's kind of like a 1% sort of situation kind of going on here, which to your point exactly, like banks, militaries, more mature organizations that like have a lot more to lose, that have more mature kind of programs, like totally makes sense, like totally get it. And then there's also kind of like, I don't know, I think about the exact opposite of that as well, which is like, well, what about everybody else who does have problems? And there are companies who have data that's useful on stuff that...
Well, I mean, okay, and here's the thing, right? Like, ROI is a real thing here, and a bank can measure ROI. They're very good at that. They can measure ROI on a threat feed, right? Most people would not be able to measure the ROI they're getting out of this threat intelligence feed, right? And I know this frustrates you because, like, you built your whole company, like, your whole sales thing is like being able to give people ROI projections on your product.
Yeah, exactly, right?
And it drives you nuts that they can't, that the threat intel companies can't do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So it's really cool. So it's like, it's an awesome ace in the hole, right? Whenever we're discussing pricing, et cetera, and we're like, well, I mean, look, this is like the value's right here. Like, yo, we agreed to all of these numbers. It's like very quantifiable, and that works really well.
Well, so why don't you walk us through what's involved in a ROI calculation for Greyhound?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, like basically what we're trying to figure out is how much of your analyst time we're opening up for you. Like how, like all of your analysts are already overworked. That's a fact, right? They have way too many things to do and they don't have enough time to do it. That's also a fact. You also, as if you're operating a SOC or something like that, you don't usually have a ton of money to sling around towards new tooling, people, etc., right? So it's really important, again, as like an MSSP, for example, with the non-granular threat intelligence companies, a lot of the like longer-running threat intelligence companies, and even some of the newer ones, you think about how they're going to try to price something. If it's not fraud, because fraud is wildly easy to quantify the value of, but if it's not fraud, then you're talking about basically taking like, all right, we're going to maybe prevent an undesired outcome that is going to have a very difficult to quantify cost to you, and we're going to maybe prevent it and we don't know how much the bad thing would cost, like the big breach that we're gonna hopefully
Well, we
prevent
don't
from happening.
know how far through the bad sequence of events we're going to catch it either, and yeah, what that bad sequence of events is, yeah.
There are so many unknowns that what a lot of threat intelligence companies will do, that's just the worst way to do things, is they'll just try to scare the crap out of you as much as they can, and then they'll say, buy our thing, and you're good now, right? And that's like, when you compare that process and a lot of the lack of clarity that the buyer has and the lack of transparency the buyer has, you compare that to something that's like reasonably cut and dry, like you can see why buyers and users would be frustrated after a period of time. Like that just sounds like a nightmare to try to quantify. And God help a lot of the people who are trying to make the case for the sales for this, because even if the product is good,
The same English accent. Say hello again, Daryl. See, that's not Lawrence Judd. What the hell's going on? So Daryl is my new co-host, and for the record, Lawrence is kind of out of the fitness industry in general. He and I are still good friends, and I hope to have him on the podcast as a guest at some point. And so, just want everyone to know that. Daryl, do you want to tell everyone how you got involved with Eat, Train, Progress?
Yeah, so it all started around a year ago in terms of me being involved, but how I found out about yourself and ECP was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was trying to venture into the strength training remit of personal training, so I've done a lot of in-person stuff on the weight loss and just general stuff. But then I wanted to get
Yeah, right.
maybe I'm going to try this online training stuff that people have been going about for a while. So I followed those people's done it, I did people talking at the top of the league. And then I was like, right, what do I want to be in the space? So I went to a load of business mentors, and as you both know, there's a lot of pushing the ones out there.
Ooh.
And I saw what you did from ETP, I saw what your ethics were, but I got one of them anyway. And thought, okay, cool, I'm just going to go out with you. And bearing in mind, before this, me and Patrick had no interactions with each other, not even a comment on a thread or a like for each other's posts. Practically, I knew who Patrick was, and he didn't know who I was at all. And
But I do now.
But you do now. That's what I
That's what
and I was reaching out to Patrick to say, well, wait, yeah, I can do that. Now things opened up over in the UK. And I went, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So I said, oh, where then? So go to Patrick's Spark group, which is the weight loss group, the ETP rooms, hashtag plug. And then I said to Patrick, hey, can I take part? And Patrick said, video time for a call. I said, yeah, also clearly doing nothing right now because I don't have business. Literally £800 a month at that point. And Patrick was like, hey, why don't you help me out, join the group, see what I'm doing. And maybe do some behind the scenes help, but together we'll the part group that a lot. And it basically very well.
Awesome.
Results on fun. I know you are.
Definitely. Definitely having fun. So regarding the podcast, we're probably going to do an episode every couple of weeks or so. And I do already have some guests lined up. I am going to probably start with a few solo episodes just to get the ball rolling. I don't mean solo episodes, but you and I, Daryl, and then start bringing in some guests. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of more casual banter, and we'll occasionally have official topics to present on, and it'll be the usual goofiness that you can expect. And I had something else that I was going to add. Yeah, let's do a little plug for this fat loss group, because it is something that is working very well for us and for the clients who participate. This is a group that we run. We launch it about every 10 to 11 weeks on average, and it is an 8-week duration fat loss group where everyone is placed into a private Facebook group monitor and adjust your calorie intake, and you basically use that to check in with us. And we've also made ourselves increasingly available via private messaging. And so we'll have people reach out if you have a question. That's what our job is to be there for you and help you along the way. And so, and then this round we added weekly, not quite weekly, but regular hangouts. So we've done a few of them now, where it's just an optional social thing where we all get on Zoom and chat. And then we're doing weekly Q&As where Daryl and I will get on video and take any questions that people in the group have. Did I miss anything?
No, but I just wanted to throw out a statistic that we take from the past 2 weight loss groups.
Sure.
And the statistic, and this is all over recent data, when we do the promotions for it, is that 87% of people get a weight loss from the group. So they actually lose weight. 87% of people on the past 2 rounds lost weight.
Yeah, and I have some previous data that aligns with that. It's always in the high 80s to low 90s, and being very blunt, we always have 1 to 3 people who will drop out. I think that's completely normal. No judgment when that happens. We'll occasionally get someone where it's just not a good fit. It seems like a reasonable idea, doesn't it?
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to doing this. I think this is a nice, short and sweet intro to get us back in the groove. And that's all I got. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, just that. I can't wait to do some more, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Dude, it's going to be great, and we're looking forward to it. All right, bye, potatoes.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Risky Business, your weekly information security news and current affairs show. My name's Patrick Gray, and yeah, I've got Adam Boileau actually sitting next to me in the flesh for a change. He is actually my house guest for the week. G'day, Adam, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's very luxurious here in Casa del Business.
Casa del Beers, that's right, Shea Beers. And look, I got to say, so I've got to point it out, you're a massive hit with my daughter. I actually collected some audio on that, so here it is for the listeners. She's talking about your luxurious beard. So, you like Adam's beard?
Yeah.
What do you think about
It's bigger than yours. Hi.
it? But what are you trying to use it for?
Blanket.
You reckon I could use his beard as a blanket?
Yeah.
What sort of person is going to want to use his beard as a blanket? It was amazing how it all started with the discussion of the signal stuff, and then it just kind of unfurled from there, right? So I've got links to about 4 or 5 articles in this week's show notes, and I guess what really comes across is something that we've been saying on the show for a while, which is that people really need to move away from one-time passwords, whether that's via SMS or other mechanisms, and they probably want to move away from push authentication as well. Like we're getting to a critical junction here, is what I'm getting at. When you've got actors, I mean, look, whether they're kids, whether they're access brokers, doesn't really matter. When you've got people trying to get in your OTP supply chain, for want of a better term, it kind of proves that we need to change the way we're doing things.
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of column inches over the years talking about the shortfalls of SMS multi-factor. But as you say, all of the multi-factor options that don't have some kind of cryptographic binding with who they're authenticating to, i.e. U2F or FIDO style authentication, this is probably the point where this has become properly real, and attackers are always going to do what actually works, right? I think everyone knows how to man-in-the-middle pass-through, use a proxy to do man-in-the-middle pass-through authentication with multi-factor, and it's the time that everyone sucks it up and adopts.
Well, I think everybody's known how to do that for a long time. Like, red teamers, for example. I know you've been using those sort of techniques for a long time, and I can think of people I knew who were doing that against things like corporate and small. But when you actually start talking to some CISOs, they're like, oh yeah, we're already halfway through our YubiKey rollout, which started 6 months ago. It does feel like there's a push on it, so that's the good news.
Yes, and I think it's a technique that's been in play for a long time, but now it's necessary, and it really does illustrate that there was an interview actually with a Russian hacker that we have a bit later on in the list, to talk about how they, by and large, just using off-the-shelf tools and techniques. We've had open source, software packages that are set up to do this kind of manual, built by red teamers, that are now necessary for them to use, and they're very used to just modeling whatever they need to do to get the job done into their tool chain. And we are fortunate that the moves against passwords or the full stop, have picked up a bunch of momentum. And yeah, we are in a place where, for big orgs, important organizations, like it's actually totally feasible to roll the stuff out and use it in pro scale.
Well, not only that, but I think it's a slam dunk business case as well. Like we've sort of got to the point where it shouldn't be too hard to convince the check signers that this is something that you need to prioritize.
Yeah, and especially when the cyber insurance is getting harder to get, and the losses are actual money. Now with ransomware, it makes it an easier sell in many respects, technical and business.
Yeah, now one of the companies that was impacted in this was LastPass, and apparently someone racked off with their source code. But the way they've architected their product, it doesn't really look like this is going to have much impact to their, customers.
Which is great news, and you would...
Because they could. I don't know. It's hard to, we're sitting here trying to second guess motivations.
Yes, and that's kind of funny in a way that, is this nation state? Is this a bunch of lapsus kids? Is it,
Is it initial access brokers? And every single one of those things kind of fits. In this case, I do feel like it's sort of lapsusy, as I said. It sort of has that vibe to it. The attackers behind it's what you think. We're also going after Psych-Cytel, right?
Yes, and the realities of the supply chain and the ability of attackers to just choose whoever beyond the boundaries where we can test. If you're buying services off a provider like Psych or whatever, you really do just get to take their assurances. I mean, all of the accreditations and certifications and the security paperwork you're going to get.
But we ticked the box.
Yes.
How did we get hacked?
Yeah. And we are kind of past the point where just ticking the box because nothing bad ever really happened. We are past that now. We do need controls and audit processes that actually account for reality a little bit. So
finally, it's not just paranoia, they actually are out to get you, right? So, making security people all over the world extremely happy. Krebs on security, Brian Krebs, has a really good write-up on this whole thing, and he's given a great headline, which is how one-time passwords became a corporate liability. So, look, as I say, I feel like these events have really bolstered the thing that we've been saying, which is, you need a roadmap to having full, basically, YubiKey auth across an enterprise. If you're not doing that, it's at this point it's